We've got another great reason to visit the Henry Ford. Now, honoring that fateful night 100 years ago, the sinking of the Titanic, they are showcasing Titanic, the Artifact Exhibition. And what makes this exhibit so unique is that they have over 250 items that have never been seen in Michigan before. Now, the Titanic exhibit does require an extra ticket, but you're going to have all kinds of time to explore because they let in 100 people every 15 minutes to kind of keep it controlled. And you can also buy an audio tour if you want to listen to some of the things as you're walking along and help guide you on your way.
It's been a great opportunity for the Henry Ford to bring this exhibit here at the time of the 100th anniversary. Remember, it was April 14th, 1912 that Titanic struck the iceberg, and we have it right here, right now at this point. It's going to run through September 30th, so there's a lot of opportunities to be able to see the exhibit, but we've been telling our guests, make sure you get those tickets in advance so you can attend at the time that you want to and when it's convenient for you.
So that's, you pick a time and then you board for your time, which is kind of what's going on behind us here.
That's right. We let people in 15-minute increments so they can flow through. They start here boarding in our boarding zone. You can see images of the original White Star docks behind.
So you're actually given a boarding pass. Explain how this works to me.
Right. Everybody that comes in will be given a boarding pass here in our boarding zone. And what this boarding pass does is it associates you with an actual passenger or crew member that was on board Titanic. So you could be first class, second class, third class, and you can sort of follow what their experience would be throughout the ship. And then in the end, you can find out whether or not your passenger survived the journey.
Wow, that really personalizes it for the visitor. It brings it home that these were people and not just something you read about. So I am a first class woman passenger. I'm gonna follow it to the end and see if I made it.
All right.
All right. King of the world, right? What's going on here is they'll take your photograph with this green screen behind you. You can buy the photograph at the end of the tour with the water behind you, just like you were at the bow of the Titanic. So this, explain to me, it's set up chronologically how it happened?
That's right. So the first gallery that guests enter into is essentially the building of the ship. And then basically you follow the life of the ship from its building to passengers boarding to the experience on the ship, the events of that fateful night, and then eventually the actual wreck and the recovery efforts for some of the artifacts that you see in the exhibit. I look at these artifacts and I'd love to know the stories of them. And what's fascinating is you'll find some artifacts that you would never expect to have lasted 7, 8, 9 decades on the ocean floor. Paper cards, tickets that are in this case to me, are truly amazing. Well, not only are there amazing artifacts in this exhibit, we really get a chance to immerse people into the experience with these amazing recreations. This is a recreation of a first-class hallway, exactly as though it would have looked for passengers boarding into that first-class section.
This is gorgeous, even nowadays. It's beautiful.
It truly is. They wanted to rival any 5-star hotel, and I think it could even rival those today.
Well, Tom, this is sort of like the grand lobby, or so to speak, of the ship, right?
Right. This is a recreation of the Grand Staircase, one of the more famous elements on board Titanic, and was featured in the 1997 movie, which was, of course, Meet Me at the Clock between Kate and Leo.
Now, this is also a photo op for your visitors as well, correct?
And I think this is just going to be an amazing keepsake. Again, to do it in the 100th anniversary, 100 years later.
So this room is sort of like the experience room?
Yeah, this is what we're calling the passenger gallery. And what it really talks about is what the experience was like for each of the passengers as they came on board. Some really cool things in here include first, second, and third class china, because of course all the experiences were different, as well as personal belongings, and it really sort of tells the story and tries to bring home what it was like to be on that ship.
It's a bit sad, but fascinating. You know, it's hard to say that it's enjoyable when you think of...
I've always been fascinated with the Titanic and the legend, and it's fun to come out and actually see relics of it.
So this room is typical of what a first-class passenger's room would have looked like, and of course, according to my boarding pass, this would have been for me, even nice by today's standards.
This is actually the third class compartment. It's very, compared to the first class, definitely played down a lot. But even when you look at this third class cabin, this was pretty deluxe for the day for a third class passenger. They would have had, they would have been sleeping on straw mattresses on some of the other ships. So this was actually pretty nice, but definitely a big contrast to that first class stateroom.
Okay, so now we're hearing the engines roar, is that?
That's right. We're getting closer to the engine room, the boiler room, and the story that begins here is really the story of what happened that night on April 14th, leading into the morning of April 15th.
Well, this room sort of has an eerie feel. Explain what's going on here.
Right. As we've gone through the events of that night, this is a very somber room, and it's a very hushed room because this focuses on the actual striking the iceberg and those events that happened around 11:40 and then leading into just past 2 o'clock the next morning. The big feature in here, of course, is our iceberg, which is a hands-on iceberg you can actually touch. And a little interesting fact about that, it's 32 degrees, but the water would have been 28 degrees because salt water freezes at a lower temperature, so it would have even been colder than that frozen wall.
Wow, this is chilling, and it's unimaginable that they actually had to get into the water and it was colder than this frozen block of ice. 28 degrees, and they survived, some of them.
So this is what was discovered in 1985. There have been many dives after that that have recovered the artifacts that you see in the exhibit. Again, all discovered on the debris field. And these au gratin dishes sort of show how things were just sort of neatly lined up. So these are the real dishes, just laid out just the way they would have been found them on the ocean floor.
I am fascinated by the things that they were able to bring up from the wreck. And the fact that I can actually see it and touch it. There's an exhibit over there that they're allowing you to touch, so it's absolutely wonderful. I am thoroughly enjoying myself.
So this is what she's referring to, that you can touch. It's an angle iron, recovered. Here it is, you can actually reach in there and touch a piece of history. So sort of wrapping up the experience, we end up in this room.
Yep.
Which is...
This is the final gallery, which is the memorial gallery. We know who owned these individual artifacts, whereas many of the artifacts were strewn about on the ocean floor. They could have been anybody's. The final thing in the exhibit is, of course, our memorial wall, which is that final thing that really brings home the gravity of this event. If I remember, you were first class,
I was
correct?
first class.
All right, let's see if we can find you here.
So they're alphabetically. Oh, there I am.
Oh.
I made it. So my story's in here somewhere. That's really, it really does personalize the
That's
whole
right.
exhibit. Gives me goosebumps.
We hope that's the effect that a lot of people are having.
So then we end up in this store, which is really neat because you were saying you get to take home some of the experience.
That's right, and some of the things here really reflect what's in the exhibit, whether it's a real lump of coal or recreations of first class, second class, or third class china. It's a chance to take home a part of that experience and be able to sort of relive it. So, of course, we have all the other stuff, you know, t-shirts, things like that, but these recreations are my favorite.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. And remember, you have until September 30th to come to the Henry Ford and experience this exhibit and take home a piece of the Titanic.